Look me in the eyes. You want to know the truth? I've failed too much. I've failed so many times that if you put them all on paper, it would look like a career of losses, not wins. People see the championships, the highlights, the trophies, but they don't see the misses, the heartbreak, the moments when the whole world expected me to rise and I fell. I've missed over 9,000 shots in my career. I've lost almost 300 games, 26 times. My team trusted me with the game-winning shot and I missed. That's not a secret. That's not an accident. That's reality. But here's the difference. I never let those failures define me. I let them build me. You're scared of failure because you think it means the end, but me, I was scared of something else. I was scared of not becoming the man I knew I could be, scared of wasting the fire inside me, scared of looking back one day and realizing I left greatness on the table because I was too afraid to fail. Failure wasn't my enemy. It was my training partner. Every miss forced me to refine my shot. Every loss pushed me to study harder, train longer, fight tougher. Every doubt made me double down on discipline. Without failure, there would be no success. Without pain, there would be no hunger. Maybe that's my fault. Maybe I made you believe it was easy. Maybe I made you think it was about talent, about God-given gifts, about destiny. But no, my game wasn't built on flash. It was built on fire. It was built on sweat, on tears, on hours alone in the gym when no one was watching. You see the final product. You don't see the process. And that's why most people never get there, because they want the glory, but not the grind. They want the rings, but not the reps. They want to celebrate the win, but they don't want to live with the pain of the losses that shape it. But champions embrace the pain. Champions welcome the failure. Champions know that the only way to succeed is to fail over and over again and rise every single time. So yes, I've failed too much, but that's exactly why I succeeded. Failure is not glamorous. It doesn't come with applause or highlight reels or cameras flashing in your face. Failure is ugly, it's heavy, it crushes you in silence when nobody's around. I remember nights sitting alone after a loss, staring at the ceiling, replaying every mistake in my head. I remember missing that last shot and feeling the weight of the city on my shoulders. I remember the sting, the anger, the disappointment, not just from fans or teammates, but from myself, because no one was harder on me than me. That's the part people don't see. They think champions are bulletproof, immune to doubt. But let me be honest, I doubted myself too. I felt the pain, I carried the shame. But here's the key. I didn't run from it. I didn't hide it. I used it. Every failure is a mirror. It shows you who you really are. Do you make excuses or do you take responsibility? Do you quit or do you come back stronger? Do you let the world define you by your mistakes, or do you define yourself by how you rise? That was my mindset. Every loss was fuel. Every miss was motivation. Every failure was a lesson written in blood and sweat. And I studied those lessons until I had no choice but to grow. Maybe that's what separates the great from the average. The average look at failure and see an ending. The great look at failure and see the beginning of something bigger. So, you think I was born confident? No, confidence was built through repetition, through struggle, through failing so many times that the fear of failure no longer controlled me. When you've missed thousands of shots, missing one more doesn't scare you. What scares you is not taking the shot at all. That's why I never shied away from the pressure. Give me the ball, win or lose, I wanted to wait. Not because I always made it, but because I was willing to fail for it. And that willingness, that courage to risk failure, that's the real difference. So if you're afraid of failing, hear me, you should be more afraid of never trying. You should be more afraid of looking back at your life and realizing you played it safe, that you avoided risk, that you chose comfort over growth. Because comfort won't make you a champion, failure will. People ask me all the time, Michael, how did you keep going after so many failures? The answer is simple. I never saw failure as the end. I saw it as part of the path. You can't reach the top of the mountain without stumbling on the way up. You can't perfect your shot without missing thousands of them first. You can't build mental toughness without walking through pain, rejection, and doubt. Failure isn't a detour, it's the road itself. The truth is, I became addicted to the grind, addicted to the process. I wanted to see how much better I could get, how far I could push myself, how deep I could dig when things got ugly. And the only way to discover that was through failure. I used to treat the court like a classroom. Every missed shot was homework. Every lost game was a test. Every tough opponent was a teacher. And I showed up ready to learn, ready to study, ready to fail forward. Most people don't get that. They think talent is enough. They think skill is enough. But talent without failure is fragile. Skill without struggle is shallow. The only thing that lasts, the only thing that makes you unbreakable is learning to turn failure into fuel. Maybe you think I'm exaggerating. Maybe you think my story is unique, but I promise you it's not. Every champion you admire has failed more times than you can count. Every icon you look up to has scars you'll never see. The difference is they didn't hide from failure. They didn't let it bury them. They built on top of it. Failure is like weights in the gym. It breaks you down so you can rebuild stronger. You don't curse the weights, you thank them. You don't avoid the pain, you embrace it. Because you know the pain has a purpose. That's how I saw failure. Every loss, every mistake, every miss. It all had purpose. It all shaped me, refined me, sharpened me. And over time, I stopped fearing failure. I started respecting it. I started trusting it because I knew if I was failing, that meant I was still in the fight. That meant I was still growing. That meant I hadn't quit. So when people ask, Michael, what's the key to success? I'll tell them this: be willing to fail more than anyone else. Be willing to miss the shots. Be willing to take the hits. Be willing to walk through the fire. Because on the other side of failure, that's where greatness lives. Maybe it's my fault. Maybe I made you believe it was easy. Maybe I made you think that greatness was about the highlights, the dunks, the buzzer beaters, the trophies. Maybe I made you think my career was built on destiny, on some God-given gift. But let me tell you the truth. My career wasn't built on destiny. It was built on discipline. It wasn't built on highlights. It was built on heartbreak. It wasn't built on perfection. It was built on failure, repeated, relentless failure. Every time I fell short, I made a choice. I could blame the world or I could own it. And every time I chose to own it. Because the moment you take responsibility, you gain power. You can't change what you don't own. So I own my misses, I own my losses, I own my pain. And with that ownership came growth. That's the part people don't understand. They think failure weakens you. But in truth, failure gives you strength if you let it. Pain becomes motivation. Doubt becomes fuel. Loss becomes a lesson. Every failure adds another layer of armor to your spirit. That's why I never ran from it. I leaned into it. I wanted the ball in my hands at the end of the game, not because I always made the shot, but because I was willing to fail in front of the world. That willingness, that's what separates a player from a champion. Most people never find their greatness because they spend their whole lives running from failure. They want safety, they want certainty, they want comfort, but comfort never made anyone a legend. Look around you, every great in any field, not just basketball, has one thing in common: they failed more than anyone else. But instead of hiding, they turned those failures into stepping stones. They didn't let the world write their story, they wrote it themselves, one painful chapter at a time. So yes, maybe I led you to believe it was easy, but here's the correction: it was never easy. It was brutal, it was exhausting, it was lonely, it was filled with doubt, with pain, with failure. And yet that's why it was worth it. Because greatness earned without suffering isn't greatness at all. So when you fail, and you will, don't run, don't hide, don't quit. Stand in the fire, learn from it, grow from it, use it. That's the only way. I failed too much, but that's exactly why I became who I am. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I failed over and over and over again in my life, and that is why I succeeded. People love this success story. They love the trophies, the rings, the banners. They love the image of perfection. But what they don't love, what they rarely want to face, is the truth behind it. The truth is ugly. The truth is failure, stacked on failure, stacked on failure. Do you know how many mornings I woke up sore, tired, and mentally drained, questioning if I had what it took? Do you know how many nights I left the court with my head hanging, feeling like I let everyone down? Those moments weren't rare, they were constant. But here's the difference. I didn't stop there. I didn't let those moments define me. I let them refine me. Every missed shot, every lost game, it was data, it was feedback, it was information telling me where to grow, where to adjust, where to sharpen my edge. Failure isn't fatal, it's feedback. But most people treat failure like a death sentence. They stop trying, they give up, they let one bad game, one mistake, one rejection erase their future. That's why so few ever succeed. Not because they're incapable, but because they stop too soon. I refuse to stop. I refuse to let failure have the last word. I refuse to let fear chain me down. See, there's a secret no one tells you. The road to greatness is designed to break you. It's supposed to test you. It's supposed to strip you down to your core and ask, how bad do you really want this? And if your answer isn't everything, then you won't make it. Failure is the gatekeeper of success. It asks the question, and only those willing to endure the answer walk through. I was willing. I was willing to lose. I was willing to be embarrassed. I was willing to feel the pain because I knew each time I failed, I wasn't weaker, I was stronger. Each scar was proof that I'd stayed in the fight. So when people look at my career and say, Michael, you're lucky, you were chosen, I smile because they don't see the truth. The truth is I wasn't chosen. I chose to keep going. I chose to rise. I chose to fail forward until failure itself bowed down. And that choice, that's available to you too. Don't envy the success, respect the struggle. Don't fear failure. Use it, don't look for shortcuts. Embrace the long road, the painful road, the road full of setbacks, because on the other side of those failures is the version of you that you were meant to become. I failed too much, and that's the only reason I became a success. You want to know why failure scares so many people? It's because failure exposes the truth. When you miss that shot, when you lose that game, when you get cut from the team, it doesn't just sting your pride. It forces you to look in the mirror and ask, am I really as good as I thought I was? And most people don't like that answer. Most people would rather protect their ego than confront their weakness. But champions, we do the opposite. We lean into it. We stare failure in the eye and we say, teach me. When I was a kid, I didn't make my high school varsity team. That moment crushed me. I cried, I doubted myself, but then I made a decision. I would never feel that pain again. That cut wasn't the end. It was the beginning. It pushed me into the gym, into hours of lonely work, into years of obsession. Without that failure, I don't become Michael Jordan. That's what I mean when I say I failed too much, because each failure gave me a new tool, a new weapon, a new reason to keep pushing. I missed over 9,000 shots. That's not just a number, it's thousands of reminders that I had to adjust, thousands of chances to toughen my skin, thousands of moments where I could have quit but didn't. Each one left a mark. Each one shaped me. Each one built the man standing in front of you. Failure isn't the enemy, it's the architect. It designed my resilience. It constructed my discipline. It built my hunger brick by brick. But here's the truth, most people won't accept. You don't just fail once. You don't just stumble once. You fail again and again and again, and every time you get back up, you prove you deserve the next level. It's like climbing a mountain that never ends. Each failure is another step. You can stop halfway up, sit down and complain about how high it is, or you can keep climbing. Me, I kept climbing even when my legs burned, even when my lungs screamed, even when it felt like the summit didn't exist. That's the test, that's the filter, that's why only a few reach the top. So when I tell you I failed too much, I'm not asking for pity. I'm telling you the formula. The difference between me and the next guy wasn't talent. It was how much failure I could take and still keep moving. Ask yourself, how many failures can you endure? How many shots can you miss before you lose faith? How many times can you be told no before you stop trying? Because the answer to those questions doesn't just define your career, it defines your life. Every time I stepped on the court, I carried my failures with me. Not as a burden, but as fuel. That missed free throw in practice. It drove me to shoot 100 more before I went home. That game we lost because I couldn't finish the job, it forced me to study the film, to sharpen my decision making, to make sure I never repeated the same mistake. My failures were reminders. They whispered to me, you're not there yet, keep going. See, people think success is built on talent, but talent without failure is fragile. Talent without struggle is weak. A player who never fails never grows. A life without failure is a life without progress. I didn't become who I am because everything went right. I became who I am because enough things went wrong, and I kept showing up anyway. You know what happens when you fail publicly, when the whole arena sees you miss the shot you were trusted to take? It's humiliating. It cuts deep. You feel like the weight of the world is on you. But that's where greatness is forged. That's where champions are separated from the crowd, because some people run from that humiliation and others use it as fire. I chose fire. And let me be clear, it never stops hurting. Missing still stings, losing still burns. But instead of letting it weaken me, I let it remind me, pain is the price of progress. Failure is the tuition you pay for greatness. I remember games where I walked off the court with fans booing, with reporters questioning, with doubt surrounding me like smoke. But I never let their voices be louder than mine. My voice said, get back in the gym, work, prepare, come back stronger. That's the lesson. Failure isn't final, it's fuel. It's only final if you decide it is. If you stop moving, if you stop fighting, if you let it bury you, that's when failure wins. But if you use it, if you let it shape you, if you rise again and again, then failure doesn't own you, you own it. I failed too much, more than most people can imagine. And that's exactly why I stand here with success in my hands. Not because I avoided failure, but because I embraced it. So the next time you fail, and you will, don't run, don't hide, don't make excuses. Look it in the eye and say, thank you for the lesson. Now watch me come back. That's how champions are made. That's how legacies are built. And that's how I turn my failures into fuel for greatness. When people look back at my career, they see the rings, the records, the banners and the rafters. They see the championships, the MVPs, the highlights played over and over again. But let me tell you something, none of that defines me. What defines me are the failures behind all of it. The 9,000 shots I missed, the nearly 300 games I lost, the 26 times I was trusted to take the last shot and came up short. That's who I am. Because without those failures, there is no success. Without the pain, there is no glory. Without the doubt, there is no belief. Every stumble, every heartbreak, every moment where I could have quit, that's the real foundation. That's the secret most people don't want to hear. They want success without scars. They want greatness without sacrifice, but it doesn't work that way. You don't succeed in spite of failure. You succeed because of it. I failed too much, and that's exactly why I succeeded more than most. So if you're sitting there afraid of failing, afraid of being laughed at, afraid of missing your shot, remember me. Remember the man they call the greatest, and remember that greatness was built on failure. Not once, not twice, but thousands of times. Your failures don't disqualify you. They shape you, they carve you into the person capable of achieving what you've been chasing. But here's the question, will you let failure stop you, or will you let it fuel you? The world doesn't need another excuse. It doesn't need another person who gave up when things got hard. The world needs people who keep going, people who fall, then rise, people who fail, then fight again, people who understand that every loss is a step toward victory. Look me in the eye, I failed too much, and yet here I am. If failure couldn't break me, why should it break you? Stand up, miss your shots, lose your game, feel the pain, and then come back stronger. Do it again and again and again, until failure itself has nothing left to throw at you. That's how you build greatness. That's how you create a legacy. That's how you turn failure into fuel. I failed too much, and that's why I became who I was meant to be. Now it's your turn.